The rain hammered against the windshield as Marcus gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension. In the back seat, his 6-year-old daughter Emma pressed her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched the storm rage outside. They were already 20 minutes late for her piano recital, and the parking lot at the community center was packed. Marcus circled once, twice, 3 times, his chest tightening with each passing moment. Emma had practiced for months, her small fingers stumbling over the keys night after night at their tiny apartment, and now he was going to let her down, again. "Daddy, we need to hurry," Emma whispered, her voice small and worried. "I know, sweetheart, I know." Then he saw it, a spot right near the entrance, marked clearly with the blue and white symbol. His hand moved toward the turn signal before his conscience caught up with his desperation. No, he couldn't. He wouldn't. Marcus drove past, ignoring the protest rising in his throat, and continued his search in the overflowing lot. The recital was starting in 7 minutes. As he rounded the far corner of the parking lot, ready to park illegally or give up entirely, he spotted a woman sitting in a car in one of the accessible spaces. She was young, maybe in her late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Their eyes met for just a second through the rain-streaked windows, and Marcus looked away quickly, embarrassed to be caught desperately eyeing the accessible parking. He pulled into a spot 3 rows back, the furthest possible distance from the entrance. "Come on, baby," he said, unbuckling Emma and grabbing her small hand. "We're going to have to run." They had barely made it 5 steps into the downpour when Marcus heard a voice calling out behind them. "Excuse me, sir." "Wait." He turned to see the woman from the accessible parking spot rolling toward them in a wheelchair, getting drenched in the rain. She was moving fast, her arms working the wheels with practiced efficiency, her clothes already soaked through. "Sorry, I'm in a wheelchair," she said breathlessly as she reached them, rain streaming down her face. "But I saw you circling, and I saw your little girl. I'm just here dropping off supplies for the recital. I'm one of the volunteer coordinators. You can have my spot. I can park further back. Please take it." Marcus stood frozen, rain pelting his face, unable to process what he was hearing. This woman, who actually needed the accessible parking, who had every right to that space, was offering it to him. A complete stranger who had no legal or moral claim to it whatsoever. I can't," he stammered. "That's your spot. You need it." "And your daughter needs to get to her recital," the woman said, smiling despite the rain. "I can manage. I've done it 1,000 times. But you look scared, and you look like you're about to have a heart attack. Come on, trade with me. I insist." Emma tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Daddy, the nice lady wants to help." Something in Marcus's chest cracked open. For 2 years, since his wife Sarah had died from cancer, he'd been drowning, working double shifts as a nurse, trying to be both mother and father to Emma, never asking for help because he didn't know how, didn't think he deserved it, didn't want to burden anyone else with his struggles. And here was this stranger, sitting in the pouring rain, offering him a kindness he hadn't earned and didn't deserve. "Why?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why would you do this?" The woman's smile softened. "Because somebody did it for me once, when I really needed it, and because that little girl deserves to play her recital. Now go, before we all catch pneumonia out here." Marcus felt tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you so much." "I'm Marcus, and this is Emma." "I'm Olivia," she said. "Now seriously, get going." Marcus gave her his keys, and Olivia gave him hers, and within minutes, Marcus and Emma were rushing through the community center, doors, barely making it as Emma's name was being called. He watched from the audience as his daughter sat at the piano, her small frame straight with concentration, her fingers finding the keys she'd practiced so diligently. She played beautifully, only stumbling once. And when she finished, she looked right at Marcus with a smile that could have lit up the entire building. After the recital, Marcus found Olivia in the hallway, helping organize refreshments. She'd changed into dry clothes she apparently kept in her car, and she was laughing with another volunteer about something as she arranged cookies on a tray. "Your daughter was wonderful," Olivia said when she spotted him. "I caught the end of her performance." "Thank you," Marcus said again. "Not just for watching, but for everything. I don't know how to—" "You don't have to explain," Olivia interrupted gently. "I saw a dad trying to do right by his kid. That's enough." But Marcus found himself wanting to explain, needing to explain. Maybe it was the kindness in her eyes, or maybe it was the fact that he'd been holding everything inside for so long that it had become toxic. The words started spilling out, about Sarah, about the cancer, about the medical bills still piling up, about working nights at the hospital and trying to be present for Emma during the days, about the constant guilt of feeling like he was failing at everything. Olivia listened without interrupting, without offering platitudes or easy solutions. When he finally stopped talking, she simply said, "You're not failing. You're here. That matters more than you know." "But I almost took a disabled parking spot," Marcus said, shame flooding through him. "I actually considered it. What kind of person does that make me?" "A desperate one," Olivia said matter-of-factly. "A tired one. A human one. But you didn't take it, did you? Even when you were desperate, even when you thought nobody would know, you didn't do it. That says everything about who you are." They talked for over an hour, while Emma played with other children in the reception area. Olivia told him about the car accident 3 years ago that had left her paralyzed from the waist down, about the anger and depression that followed, about the stranger in a coffee shop who'd held the door open for her on a particularly bad day and then sat with her for 2 hours while she cried, refusing to leave until Olivia smiled at least once. "That woman, I never even got her name. She changed my life," Olivia said, "not because holding a door open is such a huge deal, but because she saw me, really saw me. Not the wheelchair, not the disability, but me. The person having a hard day who needed someone to care. After that, I decided I wanted to be that person for someone else, as often as I could." Marcus understood then that Olivia's gift in the parking lot wasn't just about a convenient parking space. It was about being seen, about having someone recognize your struggle and meet it with grace instead of judgment. Over the following weeks, Marcus and Olivia became friends. She told him about the nonprofit she was starting to help families dealing with medical crises, and he found himself volunteering during his limited free time, using his nursing background to help guide families through the overwhelming healthcare system. Emma adored Olivia, and Olivia treated Emma with the same thoughtful kindness she'd shown Marcus that rainy night 3 months after the recital. Marcus arrived at Olivia's office to help with some filing and found her in tears, staring at a letter from the bank. Her nonprofit was going under. Despite all her work, all her passion, she couldn't secure enough funding to keep the doors open. The programs that had helped dozens of families would disappear. Marcus looked at this woman who had given him so much, who had shown him that accepting help wasn't weakness but wisdom, and he made a decision. That evening, he drafted an email to every nurse, doctor, and staff member at his hospital, telling Olivia's story, explaining her mission, and asking for help. He posted on social media, reaching out to Sarah's old support group from her cancer treatment, to Emma's school community, to anyone who might listen. He shared his own story, too, something he'd been too proud to do before, about the single dad who almost took a disabled parking spot, and the woman in a wheelchair who taught him what real strength looked like. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in, $5, $20, sometimes hundreds. People shared the story, and it spread across the city, then the state. Local news picked it up. Within 2 weeks, Olivia's nonprofit had raised enough money to stay open for 2 more years, with additional corporate sponsors stepping forward to ensure long-term stability. When Marcus showed Olivia the final fundraising total, she stared at the screen in disbelief, tears streaming down her face. "You did this," she whispered. "You saved everything." "No," Marcus said firmly. "You saved me first. I'm just paying it forward, like you taught me." A year later, Marcus stood in that same community center where Emma had performed her recital, but this time, he was the one at the microphone. Olivia's nonprofit was hosting its annual fundraising gala, and Marcus had been asked to speak about his experience. Emma sat in the front row, now 7 years old and confident in ways that amazed him daily. Beside her sat Olivia, beautiful in a blue dress that matched her eyes, smiling up at him with encouragement. Marcus looked out at the crowd, hundreds of people who had been touched by Olivia's work, families who had been helped through their darkest moments, volunteers who had discovered their own capacity for kindness. 2 years ago, he began, "I was drowning. I was so focused on keeping my head above water that I almost forgot why I was swimming in the first place. I almost took something that wasn't mine because I was desperate and tired and felt alone. But a woman in a wheelchair stopped me in a parking lot during a rainstorm and showed me something I'd forgotten, that we're not meant to do this alone, that asking for help isn't weakness, that receiving kindness doesn't make you less, it makes you human." He paused, looking directly at Olivia. "She gave me a parking spot that day, but what she really gave me was hope. She reminded me that the world is full of people who care, if we're brave enough to let them. And she taught me that the smallest acts of kindness can change everything." The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He only saw Olivia crying happy tears, mouthing thank you across the crowd. After the event, as Marcus helped Olivia pack up, Emma ran over and threw her arms around both of them. "Daddy," she said, "Miss Olivia is like family now, right?" Marcus looked at Olivia, at this remarkable woman who had crashed into their lives in a parking lot and refused to leave, who had shown him that strength came in many forms, that disability was never inability, that true character revealed itself in how we treated others when we had nothing to gain. "Yes, sweetheart," he said softly. "She's exactly like family." Olivia reached out and took his hand, squeezing gently. In her touch, Marcus felt everything he'd been afraid to hope for: connection, understanding, and the possibility of building something new from the broken pieces of his past. That night, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed, she looked up at him with Sarah's eyes and said, "Daddy, I'm glad we were late that day." Marcus kissed her forehead, thinking about all the times he'd felt like he was failing, all the moments he'd been certain he couldn't handle one more thing. He thought about Olivia in the rain, about her arms working those wheelchair wheels as she chased them down, about her smile as she offered a kindness she had every reason to keep for herself. "Me too, baby," he whispered. "Me too." Because sometimes the moments we think are our lowest become the foundation for our greatest transformations. Sometimes the help we're too proud to ask for arrives exactly when we need it, delivered by someone who understands that we're all just trying our best in a difficult world. And sometimes a parking spot in the rain becomes the beginning of everything that matters. Marcus had learned that strength wasn't about never needing help. It was about having the courage to accept it, the wisdom to appreciate it, and the grace to pass it on to someone else who is drowning in their own storm, waiting for someone to see them and reach out a hand.